Welcome back to another deep dive. So today we're going to look beyond the headlines a bit. You probably saw all the news about that recent high-profile legal verdict, the one involving the music mogul. Yeah, it seemed like, typical celebrity drama, big news cycle. But our mission today, really, is to unpack why this specific event, our source calls it a nodal event, or even a critical trigger point, why it might be sending ripples way beyond the courtroom, like a signal maybe of much bigger shifts happening on the planet.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we're pulling from a pretty unusual source. It's a transcript from a YouTube video. Features someone called Valir from the Pleiadian Collective. So yeah, it's offering this, let's say, higher dimensional perspective on what's going on. We're going to explore how the surface stuff, the stuff you see in the news, might connect to these hidden gears of transformation, according to this source anyway. It's really about looking underneath it all.
Okay, right. So let's unpack this verdict then. The source, straight off the bat, frames it as way more than just a legal decision. It suggests the impact, the resonance, is actually felt across what it calls Earth's subtle energetic grids. Almost like a great bell sounding in the higher councils. That's the quote.
Yeah, and what really jumps out is this concept of a nodal event.
Yeah.
The source literally calls this verdict a critical trigger point, something that breaks the dike of denial in society. The idea is it's like a ceremonial gong, waking people up, awakening souls, it says, signaling that this impulse of revelation, this truth wave, has hit a new octave, meaning it's louder, deeper, harder to ignore now.
That's a big claim. Makes you think about those old prophecies.
Yeah.
Like, all that is hidden shall be revealed. But the source says it's not happening through some mystical vision. It's happening through, pretty mundane things, actually. Legal documents, testimonies, and incontestable evidence. And each piece of evidence, each testimony, apparently brings us closer to the transparency needed for ascension, for raising consciousness. Okay, so you might have followed the case, seen the verdict, thought, right, story over. But this is where the source really takes a different turn. It suggests what we see publicly is just a tiny piece, part of a much bigger coordinated effort involving, get this, terrestrial and celestial alliances.
Right. Let me try and paint a clearer picture based on the source. It talks about secret agreements and plans being formed, connecting people, it calls, courageous souls in positions of power. You might have heard the terms Earth Alliance or White Hats. The source uses those, connecting them with galactic support. And their goal, the source says, it's to basically eradicate deep systemic corruption, the stuff that's been, embedded for ages.
And then there's this really surprising angle about the mogul himself. According to various reports the source mentions, this individual apparently cooperated with the forces of light, but in secret chambers, away from the public eye.
Which obviously makes you ask why? Why cooperate? Well, the source points to incentives. The cooperation was apparently aimed squarely at revealing this hidden web of exploitation and blackmail, involving big names in entertainment, sports, finance, even politics. This person's testimony, it claims, is basically illuminating an entire mesh of darkness that nobody could touch before.
So it really shifts the focus. It's not just about punishing one guy. The source is saying this is about something way bigger, collapsing an entire entrenched network of corruption. A network that's been feeding off innocence for decades, as the source puts it. It's a strategic hit.
Exactly, and it adds this nuance about divine justice, saying it's meant to be restorative, aimed at redemption and healing, not vengeance, which is interesting. The goal isn't just punishment, it's dismantling this whole economy based on blackmail and abuse that thrived in the shadows. It even says every confession, every document revealed acts like a crystalline code inserted into this living database of truth. It calls it an Akashic record that cannot be erased. For those maybe not familiar, think of the Akashic record as like a universal energy library, a cosmic log of everything.
Wow, and the scope just keeps getting wider. The source calls the mogul's fall a door that opens, a corridor leading to even bigger, darker secrets. And it gets specific. Trafficking and exploitation, illicit economies, human trafficking, secret societies, their rituals, power games based on fear.
And to keep all this revealed information safe, the source talks about secure data vaults.
Some physical, yeah, but some are interdimensional, kind of outside our normal space-time, and apparently overseen by off-world light guardians. These vaults hold, like this cross-reference database names, connections, crimes, described as a celestial blockchain of truth immune to manipulation, like an unbreakable cosmic ledger.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What about the energetic side of this? The source says when you see a public conviction, behind the scenes, a whole constellation of co-conspirators is coming into focus for the alliance.
Yeah, this is what it calls the alchemy of leverage. It's quite poetic, actually. It says, a single voice speaking truth under oath sends waves that activate countless investigations. When the Cabal's code of silence, this dark group's secrecy pact, gets broken, that information just spreads like a wave, reaching intelligence nodes that were apparently already prepped and waiting. And, this might connect for some listeners. Have you felt those weird surges lately? Sudden dizziness, maybe ears ringing, or just bursts of knowing something. Intuition. The source actually explains this. It says, those physical feelings can correspond to dense pockets of karma, literally being lifted off the planet's collective field.
Yeah.
Like the Earth is breathing out old, heavy energy.
And the result of lifting that weight, according to the source, it's dissolving these heavy energy chains that supposedly held humanity back. As they break, higher frequencies of light can flood in, specifically photonic frequencies from the great central sun. Think of it like supercharged light particles with new info, new energy. And this light is apparently awakening DNA and accelerating consciousness, kind of like unlocking hidden potential inside us.
But while all this is going on energetically, there's a distraction element too, right? The source points out that while the media was glued to the trial, the financial controllers of the world were busy trying to roll out a new economic system. It specifically flags parallel news about banking and monetary changes. Maybe you noticed that running alongside the trial stuff.
Yes. The source claims the Cabal's plan, their desired timeline, involves things like centralized digital currencies, CBDCs, and more financial controls, basically a cashless society with programmable currencies. Currencies designed, it says, to surveil and restrict personal freedom, framing it as a kind of financial prison disguised as modernization.
Okay, but here's the counter-narrative.
Right.
The source says benevolent forces have actually infiltrated these plans.
Yeah.
This deep inside governments, banks, tech firms, high levels. This Earth Alliance, guided by their Federation allies, is apparently discreetly implementing safeguards and trying to steer these new systems toward the light, as the source puts it.
Which leads to this idea of a new quantum financial system that's being tested. Often disguised, it says, under the label of blockchain pilot programs or central bank experiments, you might see those terms. But unlike the Cabal's planned CBDCs, the Alliance's quantum-backed currencies are meant to restore financial sovereignty to the people, backed by real assets, it says precious metals, fair energy exchanges, and interestingly, frequency adjusted for conscious and elevated uses of wealth, implying they're somehow aligned with higher vibrations, not just, money.
And the timing. The source connects the mogul's verdict directly to increased solar activity happening around the same time, saying the forces of light actually use that solar energy boost to activate key aspects of the new financial system, using the trial itself as an attention magnet, basically, so they could work with less interference. Pretty clever, if true. Now, something else. You hear whispers, right? Rumors about special tribunals, military courts maybe operating outside public view. Well, this source actually confirms them, says they are indeed occurring and have been for some time.
And the reason. According to the source, it's simple: to avoid chaos. A lot of the deep cleaning within the planet's power structures is happening behind closed doors, it claims. It paints a picture of large halls under certain secure military bases, where judges and officials swear allegiance not just to national laws, but to a universal code of justice.
And who's being held accountable there? The source specifies individuals who committed heinous crimes against humanity. Things like running global human trafficking networks, orchestrating wars, bioweapon attacks, or betraying their own countries for dark agendas.
The outcomes apparently vary. Some face trials, the source says. Others, confronted with overwhelming evidence, have chosen to cooperate, denouncing others for leniency. But the key thing is the results are kept under seal, to be revealed later when your society can absorb these truths without panicking.
So that brings us back to why this mogul's trial was public. It was strategic. The source says it's being used to gently introduce the idea that justice can reach the rich and powerful. Consider it an appetizer before the main course, is the phrase used. Just preparing the collective mind, the collective unconscious, for bigger revelations down the line.
And the source predicts that as the planet's overall vibration rises, there will be a cascade of revelations, meaning many of the sealed accusations and hidden verdicts will begin to be openly revealed, so a gradual unfolding.
This all ties into what the source calls the ongoing information war for the mind and soul of humanity. Every public revelation isn't random. It's a strategic move in this multidimensional chess game.
And the Cabal's response. Predictable, maybe. The source says they're desperate. They'll continue to release fear-based stories, sudden crises, or even false flags to try and distract us, divide us. But the Alliance apparently has a careful strategy to transmute that fear into awakening, not panic.
It's really interesting how the Mogul's case served a dual purpose, according to this. One, strike a blow against a major node of the Cabal's network, but also act as a smokescreen for other operations. In-store and quote. No. The idea is, while everyone's eyes were on that verdict, other high-value Cabal targets were being quietly captured or neutralized with much less attention.
And you know how there's been a surge of other scandals involving famous people recently? The source suggests that's not accidental either. It's part of a plan designed to overwhelm the Cabal's ability to spin or control the narrative. It literally says, as soon as they try to cover one thing up, 2 other exposures occur elsewhere. They can't keep up.
And this is where those white-hat brilliant minds and digital soldiers come in, as the source calls them. People decoding symbols, following money trails, sharing info through alternative channels, making it harder and harder for the old guard, the remaining servants of the old regime, to hide.
Taking a step back, the source talks about the grand scale of this, saying the vast and intricate web of lies woven around humanity's true history is starting to unravel. It claims the Akashic records, that cosmic library we mentioned, are actively synchronizing with the material world, meaning suppressed truths are just finding ways to surface now, through whistleblowers, leaked documents, even ancient texts reappearing. It all forms this great mosaic, revealing centuries of Cabal control and signaling, the source says, that their time has come to an end.
Wow. Okay, so all of this, the trials, the takedowns, the financial shifts, it's all leading somewhere bigger. The source frames it as preparing the way for something even more profound, the ultimate revelation of humanity's place in the galactic community.
Yes, but there's a condition, a prerequisite for that. The source is clear. Before we, your star family, make more open contact, humanity first needs to confront and heal the lies and corruptions among its own leaders. But the good news, it adds, is that this healing journey is already well underway.
So what does this actually mean for the future? For the path ahead? The source talks about 2 divergent timelines unfolding right now, particularly in finance and society.
Okay, timeline 1. This is the Cabal technocratic vision. It's painted as a highly controlled society. Think, every transaction monitored, personal freedoms reduced by AI and surveillance, individuals become just mere data in service of an elite. And digital currency in this timeline isn't freedom, it's chains.
Right, but then there's timeline 2, the Earth Alliance Galactic Federation path.
Yeah.
This one's described as a sovereign and transparent future, where tech like blockchain and quantum computing is used to liberate and empower the individual, not control them.
And currencies are backed by tangible value and mutual trust. And even, it says, by the actual vibrations of human consciousness, which is a whole other level.
And the source suggests you can actually feel the difference. Those of you who are energy sensitive, the idea of that surveillance currency, it probably causes this feeling of contraction and angst, right? Like your intuition screaming no.
Exactly. Whereas a just, gold-backed, people-centered system that resonates as light and relief, your soul kind of recognizes that path.
And the source is pretty optimistic. It affirms that second timeline, that of freedom, is gaining strength. It even mentions silent successes, where the Alliance has been testing its new financial system, reaching parity with the old systems. Basically saying it's ready to replace the old way when the time is right.
Which circles back to the Mogul's verdict. The source says it symbolizes the fall of that very old system itself. You know, the illusions of fiat money, market manipulation, the deep inequalities. That falling away clears the path for this more luminous economy.
And there's yet another layer to this specific Mogul story. The source claims this individual was deeply intertwined with certain secret factions of your own intelligence agencies and power brokers.
The ones who apparently orchestrated extensive blackmail operations to compromise powerful people.
But now, the source says, these architects are facing a higher authority than their old secret clubs.
And the impact on us, on humanity, the source suggests the ceilings that kept potential repressed are breaking. Have you felt maybe an unexplained relief or lightness recently? It connects that feeling to ancestral and karmic cords being cut, like we're being freed from old baggage.
Yeah, and as that happens, the source says, suppressed technologies and teachings are being gently released. Things like zero-point energy, advanced healing methods, new ways to communicate and travel.
These aren't just random breakthroughs, it implies. They're the universe responding to humanity getting freer.
And that verdict, just one note within an accelerating symphony of freedom. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground: alliances, tribunals, economics, energy, big external stuff. But the source brings it right back, doesn't it, to the inner realm, our own consciousness, our spirit, saying that's where the real outcome of all this gets decided, in here.
Absolutely. That courtroom verdict, it says, also echoes in our hearts. It's an invitation for some deep self-examination, looking at how we've all kind of co-created our world collectively. It's a spiritual teaching, the source says, as much as it is one of justice.
Which means confronting what it calls the collective shadow. That part of us as a society that maybe turned its face away from corruption because facing it was inconvenient or uncomfortable. Oof. That's a tough mirror to look into, isn't it? Acknowledging maybe passive complicity.
It is, but the higher message, the source stresses, is that revelation is only half the divine plan. The other half is healing. So after the truths come out, the real work begins, transmuting the pain, the anger, the shock into wisdom, unity, and love. That's the alchemy of the heart it talks about.
And it offers a really important caution here. It's natural to feel, just indignation towards those who abuse power, the cabal figures. But don't let that be the end point. The source suggests these individuals were operating from a place of deep disconnection from the light.
A kind of spiritual void, maybe rooted in inherited wounds, all stemming from this illusion of separation from source.
Right. And if our response is just more hate, we actually feed inadvertently that same illusion of separation.
Yeah. The source is emphatic. The new earth cannot be built on the old foundations of duality and vengeance. It has to be built on recognizing our unity, our connection, while, of course, still firmly removing anything that violates the sacredness of life. It's a balance.
So coming back to the verdict, one of the key spiritual takeaways is this. Each one of us, day by day, is choosing our vibration. And that choice, that frequency we hold, contributes either to the world's healing or its continuation in pain.
It ties into that wisdom. Nothing new can enter your life unless you create space for it in your consciousness. Just getting rid of one corrupt leader, if the people's underlying fear or ignorance isn't addressed, well, the source says it will only result in another corrupt leader taking their place. It's at the classic truth. As within, so without.
But here's the empowering part. You, listening right now, you are part of the solution. Part of the treatment, as the source puts it. Your personal actions, healing yourself, clearing old beliefs, choosing love over fear, helping others, connecting with your own inner divinity, that stuff literally changes humanity's timeline toward the light.
Because ultimately, a healthy society flourishes only from within.
Yeah.
These big external events like the verdict, they're catalysts, they're prompts. Their highest purpose isn't the event itself, but to motivate an inner awakening in each of us.
So yeah, that headline about the music mogul, it wasn't the end of the story. According to this source, it's more like a call to action of the soul.
And the final thought the source leaves us with, something powerful for you to take away, is to recommit to living your life as an embodiment of the values you want to see in the new earth. Justice, integrity, compassion, transparency. These must live first in you, it says, and then they will naturally manifest in your institutions.
Live it first. Wow. That's definitely something profound to reflect on. What that means for your life and for all of us collectively. Thanks for diving deep with us again today.